afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be hearing this and seeing this. My name is Hilena Tadesse. We are joining you for the next in our series and conversation, Wellness in Time of Crisis. We begin by thanking Cyber Power of Tigray for this platform, and you may be seeing this on other Tigray media houses as well. We thank all these media platforms that have come together in order to serve our greater community, such cooperation in providing resources. Today, I am joined by Ms. BeeLyn as well as Ms. Selma. It is such a pleasure to have you both here in this conversation. Ms. BeeLyn could not be with us today, and so we send her our well wishes. Ladies, how are you doing today?
We're doing good. How are you?
Good. I think good as can be expected under the circumstances. So I want to start off by having you introduce yourselves to our viewers. Would you like to go ahead? You're at the top of the screen there, Ms. BeeLyn.
Okay. Hi, my name is BeeLyn. I'm a master's in social work with a direct practice in mental health and substance abuse.
Perfect. Thank you so much. You're up next, Ms. Selma.
Hi, everyone. My name is Selma, and my background is in public health. I have my graduate degree in public health, and today, for this conversation, I'll be doing this session in Tigray. For those who speak Tigray, as I said, Vanessa and my dad, መጀመሪያ ናይ ባችለርስ ዲግሪ ጥናት for health science ይባሃል ብናይ ማስተርስ ዲግሪ ድማ ካብ ን4 ዓመት ዝቀፅሉ ዘሎ ድማ ብማስተርስ ናይ ኩሉ ሰብ ኣጠቃሊሉ ጥዕና ብዝብል እና ነማዓንቲ መፅና ዘለና ብዛዕባ ከመይ ከምቲ ኩሉ ዘሎስ ኣብ ናትና ጭንቀት ከመይ ክፈጥር ከም ዝክእል ኩሉ ክራይስና በቲ ተምሃርናዮ ክነካፍል ኢና መፅና ዘለና ከምቲ ትፈትዩ ድማ ተስፋ ንገብር።
Perfect. And Hadigize Bengizina for those that may, like myself, be in and out with it.
Yeah, I just briefly said, mentioning my background in public health and the two of you here, and we're here just to share our experience when the war broke off and how it's impacting us, Tigrayan living abroad, as well as those who are experiencing this firsthand back home.
So true. So right off, I want to start by talking about when the situation first happened, when the attack on our, well, actually, first off, let me start by saying what a hard week it's been. I want to acknowledge a couple of things. We're all scrambling to meet up with you, our viewers, because we know this is necessary. It's needed for all of us, right? It seems as though every day that passes, there's new news, more horrifying and horrific accounts of what's happening within our beloved Tigray. And it is very necessary to come together in such a way to really talk about how it is affecting us. Because as we continue to say, our advocacy, what we're doing, the shouting to the world, the crying, the looking for help and calling on our officials, all these things are necessary. In order to do that, we need to continuously check on our well-being so that we have the stamina, the strength. In the advert for this program, we kept mentioning, we realize this may seem like a luxury to think about yourself, to talk about our feelings. It is actually a necessity. So please, let's be in the mindset and you're not wasting your time just because you're hearing this conversation. You're actually adding to what it is that we need to do, that you need to do in order to continue to fight for our people, for the many millions that are facing starvation and the atrocities that are happening within our Tigray. So we'll begin by saying, what were you feeling? How when the war broke out, where were you? What were you feeling? What were you thinking? How the terminology that's continuously used right now, how did we get here? Open it to both you ladies.
Bilen, do you want to go?
I can. For me personally, since being here, living here, and hearing the news from over there, it was almost as if initially, it was almost as a denial aspect of it, only because something so chaotic and traumatic for me was hard to believe. But I think as soon as I got out of the shocked portion of it, that's when I started to feel more of the process of experiencing certain symptoms. One thing I would say is I kind of felt more of a overwhelmed, stressful feeling. Experienced more of the stomach portion of the nausea and the anxiety. But as time goes on, it's almost as if I kind of feel used to it in a way, but I kind of started to learn how to navigate and get more into the emotional aspect of it. But over time, I kind of managed it better, but it is still very, very hard to hear as news continue to go on because I just feel like there's nothing I could do, but I've had to redirect myself and remind myself that, these are the things that I'm able to do and control and continue to advocate.
I think for me, so ኣብ ኣዲስ ኣበባ ስጋዕ 13 ዓመት እንዳሃለኩ ተቀምጠ ነይረ እና እቲ ቋንቋ ድማ ኣብኡ ስለ ዝነበርኩ ክኢለዮ ምስ ዓባይ እንዳነበርኩ ማለት እዩ ሶ ክልቲኦም ኣምሓርኛ ትግርኛ ምክእል እና ኣብዚ ዝፈፀኩ ድማ ምስ ቤተሰብ ገለ ክዛረብ ኢለ እቲ ቋንቋ ሒዘኝ ነይረ I think መጀመርያ ምስ ሰማዕኮ ትክክል ኢለስ ኣይገመትኩን ከም ብዙ ሕጂ ብ2021 war ብሰንትሪ ክትሰምዕ ከለካ ማለት ሲሉ መጀመርያ ኦፕሬሽን ኢሉ እንዲሁ ጀሚሩ ነይሩ መጀመርያ ከምቲ ሕጂ ዘሎ ኩነታት ብደንብ ጌርና ይፈለጥና ነርና ግን መጀመርያ ምስ ወፀ ኣለውኒ መሓዙት ሓበሻታት ንኣተን ነጊረየን او ከምዚ ወፁ ዘለና I think መጀመርያ ከምኡ ኢሉ ምስ ወፀ እቲ ችግር ናበይ ነይሩ ብዙሕ ሓበሻት መሓዙተይ ናተይ او ከምዚ ኢሉ እኮ ጀሚሩዎ ወይ ብዙሕ ነገር ትችግር እቲ ወር ምፍጣሩ ንዓይ ኢቭን ንመሓዝተ ከይደ ክሓተን ተለኹ ከም ናይ ግጭት ነገር ተጀሚሩ like ከምዚ ተፈጥሮ ኢትዮጵያ ወር ኣሎ ገለመለ እናት ህዝብ ትግራይ ምስኮነ ድማ ነተን ብዙሕ መሓዝተ ዘለዋኒ ተገለለዋኒ ተጋሩ ይኮናን so ትዝበዝሐ ስናተን ማለተይስ ኢሉ ኦፕሬሽን እዩ ብሽዑ ግዜ እቲ መንግስቲ ከምኡ ኢሉ ስለ ተዛረቦ ማለት እዩ ሳተን ድማ ናይ ሓደ ዝኾነ ኒውስ ዝረአዩ ዘለዩ ትግርኛ ምስለ ዘይፈልጣ ማለት እዩ እና ምሳይ ዝነበረ ነገር ኣነ ክነግረን ከም ተፈጢሩ ንሻቀላ ለና ቤተሰብና ዝነብሩ በአዲስ አበባ ተኮይኖም ተጋሩ ዝኾኑ ኣብ ትግራይ ድማ እና ሞር ክንረዳዳ ኣይከኣልናን ሞር እቲ ነገር እንዳገደደ ክመፅእ ተሎ ድማ ናብ እቲ ህዝቢ ካልእ ኢትዮጵያ ሊስ ዝፈልጦ ማለት ሞር ናብ ድናያል ኣትዩ ማለት እዩ ደሓን ችግር የብሉን እቲ መንግስቲ ኮይሉ እዩ ተወዲኡ እዚ ካብ ዝብላኒ ክንገሩ ሓደ ወርሒ ገይሩ ኣነ ማይብሎም ነይረ ነው ኣይተወድአን እንዲሁም ገና ሕጂ ዝጅምር ዘሎ ንሕና ቤተሰብ ስለ ዘለና ኣዲስ ኣበባ ተጋሩ ወይ ኣብ ትግራይ ንሰምዖ ኣለና ብትሰማዕና ድማ ክነካፍሎም ከለናቶም ካልኣት ኢትዮጵያውያን ትዝበዝቱ ኣትሊስት ብናተይ ኤክስፒሪየንስ ዝረኣኮ ኣይተቀበልዎም ደሓን ስልኪ ክንበር ቀጥፉ ክሓልፍ እዩ እንታይ እዩ እዚ ሞር ድናያል ኮይኑ እና I think ዝበዝሐ ዝመጀመርያ ወር ምስ መፅእ ዝመጀመርያ ወርሒ ንሰብ ከረድእ ኣሕሊፉ እዮም ከምዚ ተፈጢሮ ብትግራይ ሰሚዕኩ ዶ ከምዚ ሳቶም ግን ኣመንዎ just ካልእ ነገር ናታቶም ኣጀንዳ የርእዩ ነይሮም ትክክል ኣይኮነ ተጋኪ እና ኣብ ብሽዑ ግዜ ብጣዕሚ ኣነ ሞር ናብ ንሽለይ ከም ትስሚዕትና ናብ ምግዳእ ኣትየ ሞር ምጭና ኮይነ ማለተይስ ከምኡ ኮይና ትግራይ ተጎዲኣ ኩሉ ኢትዮጵያ ብሓደ ኮይኑ ከም ኮና ትግራይ ኢሉ ብሓደስ ኩሉ ኣይተስአን ትዝበዝሐ ንሕና ኢና ንዛረብ ዘለና ተጋሩ ወፃእ ንነብር ዘለና በፊት ኒውስ ስለንሪኦ ዘለና በር ብሓበሻ ወጥን ተሪእካዮ እቲ ብዙሕ ኣድቮኬት ገለ ዝገብር ዘሎ ተጋር እዩ እምበር ዝበዝሕ እቲ ኢትዮጵያስ ትግራይ ተጎዲያ ኢሉ ዝበሎ የለን እና ብኡ ሞር ብኡ ሞር ጉድኣት ገይረለይ ሞር ናብ ጭንቀት ዓዲ ድማ ተደወልኩ ብናይ ኣደይ ቤተሰብ ኣዲስ ኣበባ እዩ ዘለዉ ብናይ ኣቦይ ድማ ትግራይ እዮም ዘለዉ ኣዲስ ኣበባ ዘለዉ ዝበዝሑ ዳሓና ዘለና እንዳበሉ እዮም ዝሓልፍዎ ኩሉ ነገር ክነግሩና ይክእሉን እዮም ወላ ሕማቅ ተሃለዎም ክዛረቡ ኣይክእሉን እዮም ገለና ብኩሉ ሙሉ ኣብ ዝነብር ድማ እንዳንበብና እንዳረኣናዮ ሞር ገዲሉ ናብ ምሽቃል ኣቲና ሕጂ ድማ እንዳገደደ እዩ ዝመፅ ዘሎ እቲ ነገራት ብጥሜት ሰብ ኣበይ ናበይ ኣሎ ሞር ናብ ሻቅታ ብዙሕ ሰብ ጭንቀት ኣለዎ ኣብ ወፃእ ነነብር ዘለና ድማ ናይ ወይ ሰብ ይሰርሕ ኣሎ ፋሚሊ ለካ እሱ እንዳገበርካ ኮቪድ ኣሎ ናበይን ቦታ ክትወፅእ ይትክእልን ብኡ ንላዕሊ ድማ ዝገደደ ካልእ ጭንቀት ማለት እዩ ብናይ ቤተሰብ ስለዝኮነ ብጣዕሚ ከቢድ እዩ ሕጂ ድማ ናይ ጥሜት ድማ ስለዝኮነ ኣነ ኮን ብዙሕ ናይ ፖለቲክስ ገላ ኣይፈልጥን እየ ግን ሞር እዚ ስምዒት ስለትሰምዐኒ ናይ ቤተሰበይ ንዓድና ኢለ ኣብዚ ክካፈል መፅእ ዘለኹ ከምዚ ነይሩ ንዓይ መጀመርያ
Thank you. There's so many levels, so many layers to this. I completely agree. The same for me. It broke out. I don't know what I was thinking. It just felt so unreal. It was such a shock to the system, which I know we all share collectively. And I think the greater diaspora, all we could do was just, you hear this word a lot right now. We galvanized, right? We just were glued to the TVs. There was no news. Glued to the internet. There was no news. And you're thinking, I know what's happening in my country. Why, this is a mass destruction situation. So where's the world? And, just waiting. And what happened was we were so shocked into action, into activity. I know we probably were not even thinking how the shock was affecting us to our system, how it was affecting not only our mental makeup, but the chemistry makeup that is inevitably affected because of that. So a lot of us are still, I believe, in that fight mode where we're just work. We're searching for any kind of news, and every day it's more horrific than the other.
I just kind of got considerably considerable. نكلنا رأي سمعي تفعلي كون كإلو كم بدنا أبزلنا diaspora نحنا أويل لنا بتني سمعت رأيه توم أوزلو دما بدي سبعة تجارو دما discrimination harassment هلو تجارب نحطكونا بإيربورت هلو يبلوهم نبذكون وعيد تحلو تكونون بإيربورت كيركاز كونا غير حد دقيقة أحسن من 3 دقائق أزوصل maybe نتجراوي حج كل 9 كوست دميكل تجراوي سنكون تراي الناس بزح ناتهم رياليتي أديس أبغى تجراو دلو تفلي ناس تفلي عبت تجراي زلو دم زجاجة ده مالتيو especially حج نسمع زلنا زموتو دلو بتعمل زي حزن دما كم تبهلنا مالتيو next time يكون مسلم سب موتلو بس نسرعة تتقبل حج أنت زموتنا بعد بس نسرعة تقبل أيك لنزلو just الناس تحت سمعوا قالتها بتعمل كبيرنا نابز متينا زلنا just بتتمهرنا يو كم يجرنا process كنا قبل نكذب كل بتعمل بزح سلسكونه ما نتسب حدا سبع أقل بزح سلسكونه مالتي عنا طريق هاي نيرس اللوز بزح نيرس يبتكاتن بينالو بيتسب حدي كده قصي كلون بمحرم حساب تقو نيوز يريو كده قصتلو عندنا حجي لما ناي كريستيان أودامت نيرو جانوري حالة إثيوبيا ناسنا أودامت لون دحلفوه تجارة اللو كريستيان كن أب سكاين أب بكيتن بكبير جرو محلفهم وتلو مالتنا.
Salamu, before we get there, because I want us to flow in the sequence. I don't, because you're saying such one.
I think I lost you. Can you hear me? Hello?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Thank you. So I know there's a storm where I live. Maybe I don't know if you guys as well, but I want to take us through the sequence, right? So it on November 4th, it broke out, and then there was a complete communication blackout. We didn't know what was going on. The world didn't know what's going on. Everyone is glued to the American campaign and election. News trickling out throughout our community that our people are being bombed and shelled upon, and that essentially the war has begun. I want to, in English, but because Salma said a very important point to the when it started, where our community is. When something like this begins, clinically speaking, what is our system going through? Our initial reaction, what's happening within us regarding our wellness and mental health?
So people can experience different reactions according to where they are exactly. But for the most part, I think it can also do with the fact that some of us aren't not even aware what others has been through previously. I know that some people have experienced war or crime-like activities previously. So traumatic events can actually isolate or repeat ongoing activities. This type of trauma, witnessing something traumatic happening, heightened anxiety, all these types of emotions. It kind of just seems like trauma from a lot of people are experiencing incoming trauma. And is it okay if I talked about the definition of trauma?
I'd love to. Let's go ahead and start dealing with terminology, and then I'd love for Salma to give us the Tigray version of the definition of trauma, and then I want to get right back into taking our folks on a journey of what's happening within our bodies and then our minds. And this, again, there's so many levels, right? There are people that are experiencing this firsthand within Tigray. Like we said, there are people within Ethiopia that are, or within Addis Ababa and outside of Tigray, but within Ethiopia that are experiencing this on yet another level, as well as dealing with the fact that our people within Tigray are dealing with this. So it's a double, situation for them. And then there are those of us who are outside within the diaspora who are experiencing secondhand trauma, and a lot of us are going through PTSD, which we will define again, because this is not our first time going through this. So please, can you define trauma for us?
So trauma is like an emotional response to an event that a person finds slightly stressful or highly stressful. These can include war, being directly impacted by war, natural disasters, or an accident. It can also be caused like a wide range of physical and emotional symptoms with it. So the symptoms with trauma can be associated with denial, anger, sadness, confusion, heightened anxiety, depression, numbness, guilt, irritability, difficult concentrating, and hopelessness.
And what you just read out, those are those
are symptoms
of depression or trauma?
Trauma in general.
Okay.
The physical responses when dealing with trauma would be headache, digestive problems, fatigue, racing heart, sweating, and feeling very jumpy and anxious.
And I believe it is very similar within children as well. And it may show up differently because a lot of our children are not expressing themselves. So it would be mostly that, but they probably would be more cranky and unable to resume the day-to-day. For the digestive, they may have bouts of, it could be lack of eating or overeating, which is the same for adults. It could be, things like diarrhea, any sort of digestive unease, because they're seeing that we are trying to cope with stressors. I'm sorry, please go ahead.
One more thing. And with children too, one thing to identify nightmares when they're going to sleep. constant nightmares, constant. If you also pay attention to children and their dialogue, you can kind of hear certain phrases or certain dialogue coming from them. Play therapy, for example, when children are playing, you can actually just watch them how they play and interact with different toys and different dolls, and that can also stems from what they experience. They might not articulate or explain to you directly, but it's just observing them as a whole. You can kind of see certain symptoms from the trauma.
Salma?
I think comes back to Antaway. ናይ ቋንቋ ነገር ካብ እንግሊሽ ናብቲ ትግርኛ ኩሉ ቀጥታ ክትሓልፎ ንሽለ ከብደኒ ክእል ከም ዝበልኮ ቆልዓ 3 ዓመት ዳለኮ ስለዚ መጻኩ እናት ቃላት ንሽለ ተሰባቢ sorry.
It's okay. It's not a perfect science, and we're all scrambling to do what we can, and it's perfect in its way. So thank you. Let's define trauma, please.
I think but أنا كزارب زكال تجارو زمرنا بزلنا يوب زنبرر بزلو كتما مالتيو أنت بزمت سمعكوا مالتيو إذا نقدر أنت بتعم زك بدون يزي وور بأنده بتيمتي it was unexpected بزعدي election يرو تسيلو متيو even سب بيت سب نبعلو أب تجري زنبر أو تأزرلو دويلو نبيت سب بسلام نبعل باي تفلالين بأنده بتمتيو communication تقاريتو so the بأنده بتلازم سب بلان كي جبر كلو تلازم كوفيد منيرو بزح نجار على وكبيلينا بتن إحنا كم زبالكو سب إكتيان كجبرو زكاة definition ذهبته is ناي حجي عباي تبل تدويل اللي أو جون جوار رحيم مني نمتاز تبل زلا جكات يدمسكو لسه عاملين زلنا تحواتنا أبتبرايز نبرو نعا كتب لني تكلني stress علني and بتناتنا بهذا دما كم تناي رأست عنا بزحي تلمدن حجي جنازة مسزلو بناي western تلاميدو mental health or mental wellness مالتنا حجي نعا عباي كزرباتو لك بزح جزي بكم تجلسوا مالتي تجنقت أيك دك سايك عالكون تمدم صف عايزين يسمعوا زلنا هلم يلوم كم زجيرهم ورحتة حلفوا ناي ساين ناي ستريسات نقدر تقل زلا مالتي عاوزين نبرز زلنا دما تبيت سبز زاربو بمنتهينا نرقد لنا ويكتدك سيتكلن كازني مالتي وين دما even بناتي زرعكو بمحر مجنقال انت يكونوا حجي زكون نقر مستلو تنببو تبلو حجز دحان ديوم ميبي ناتاتهم زكونوا تفلتو نقر سلزي لا مالبنا ጭንቀት አለው ብዙሕ እዚ ድማ ንንታይ ክጎድአካ ይከልን ምድቃስ ክድቅስ ደምቂርካ ይትክእልን ሜቢ ምግቢ ኣበካ ይከውን ትበልዕ ግን ኣበካ ከምቲ ናይ ቀደምካ ይትበልዖን ወይ ድማ ኩሉ ግዜ ትገብሮ ነበርካ ማለትስ ወላ ናብ ሽቅ ይኩን ምክያድ ግሮሰሪ ምግባር እዚታት ክከብደካ ይክእል እዩ ንምንታይ ጭንቀት አለው ኩሉ ግዜ ንብዛዕባ ቤተሰብካ ክትሓስብ ማለት እዩ I think the reality بتزرعنا ببيتسب كوميلي كገልጾ ዝከል
بتعمل صبغيو لأن نزاربو زلنا it's it's not an exact well there is an exact science but we're giving you a larger a general version of this because when you go into the person to person it shows up differently in each person. So just for example and I've been mindful to mention this because I don't want our viewers to think, well, okay, none of those, so I'm okay. First of all, even within you not being okay, that's okay. I think we want to start to feel that, a lot of times we think something is wrong and then we're trying to fix it. But maybe understanding that to be able to sit with it and see it for what it is in itself therapeutic, right? That way you're not just trying to shove it down. And when we say it may not show up like what we've mentioned to you, it can also show up what it's different from your day to day, right? So where we're saying maybe you have no appetite, maybe you're overeating. That's a thing as well. When we say you can't sleep, maybe you can't wake up as maybe you're having a hard time getting out of it. Because of COVID, we know a lot of people who are high risk still have not gone back to work within the diaspora. So if you're finding it that it's hard to get up, that you're in bed longer than usual, if it's usual for you, it is what it, that's fine. But whatever is what you would consider not normal for your life, if you usually drink but you're drinking a lot more, if you don't drink and you're going to it, if you usually smoke but now you're up to exponentially more packs a day, just to be mindful. We're speaking in generalities, but it looks different individually.
I think one thing I want to mention is ከምቲ ዝበልክዮ ካብ ሰብ ናብ ሰብ ይፈላለዩ ከምቲ ዝገለጽክዎ ኣነ ወይ ኣነ ከም ዝበልኩ መጀመርያ ምስ እዚ ነገር ምስ ሰማዕናዮ ከኣምና ይከኣልኩም ናይ ብሓቂ ድዩ ኢለ ንመሓዝቶ ከይደ ሓቲተየን ግን ካልእ ሰብ ካልእ ከተማ ዝነብር ወላ ወፃኢ ይኩን ተፈለይ ክኸውን ይክእል እና ካልእ ድማ ክዛረብ ዝደሊ እዚ ነገር ንዛረበሉ ዘለና ናይ ርእሲ ቃዕና ማለት እዩ ንምንታይ ኢና ንዛረበሉ ኢልኩም ተሓቲትኩም ኣፈጣጥራና ኩሉ ነገር ተተሓዘ እዩ ሕጂ ዳክተር ማለት እዩ እኮ ነገር ተኮንካ ናብ ዳክተር ትከይድ ይርኤካ ይሕክመካ ከምዚ ኮንካ ኢሉ ይዝዘልካ መድሓኒት ይህበካ ዘልየካ ነገርስ ኣሰስመንት ገይሩ ይህበካ እዩ ናይ ርእሲ ድማ ከምኡ ኩሉ ተተሓዘ እዩ ብምሕር ጭንቀትን ብምሕር እዚ ስፔሻሊ ሕጂ ዘሎ ወፃእ ዝነብር ዘለና ስፔሻሊ ናትና ነገር እንታይ ሞር ብናይ ርእሲ ነገር እዩ ኣኡ የለናን ግን እዚታት ብምንባብን ብምርኣይን ብገለመለ ሞር ናብ ተፈላለየ ቦታ ከእትወና ይክእል እና ቀሊሉ ተተሓዘ ክብል ኢለ እና እዚ ነካፍሎ ዘለና ኣብዚ ንዛረቦ ዘለና just ከን እዚ ነገር ክነተሓላለፍ ኩሉ ተተሓዘ ከም ዝኾነ ማለት እዩ ርእስና ይኩን ኣካልና ይኩን ብናይ ሃይማኖት ድማ ተልና spiritual ኩሉ ጠቃሊሉ ተተሓዘ እዩ ሰብ ክንብል ማለት እዩ
You're right. Everything is connected. Our mind and body connection, our spirit and spiritual connection. When the mind is not okay, the body's not okay.
Yep.
Essentially, the mind tells the body what to do. And the body can fool itself, but only for a certain amount of time, which leads us to day 85. If we have not dealt with the initial impact, the initial trauma, which most of us have not, because we're still in that fighting mode. We're still trying to understand while we fight for our people. On day 85, what are some things that we can do right now with the understanding that our blood pressure is high? More than likely, we are not getting enough sleep. It's very likely we are not eating, or maybe we're whatever the symptoms look like to you. For those of us who are advocating on social media, specifically Twitter, I'm seeing a lot of us are so anguished that we are taking moments, precious moments, to take it out on the people who are showing hate towards us, right? Which is also part of the response and coping mechanism of being triggered. And we define triggered the last couple of sessions as, when something kind of gnaws at you, kind of unearths trauma or something that has not been resolved, right? So you're triggered and your response could be in a different way. But on day 85, what are some things that we can do? Because, we don't want to preach to the choir. We mostly, this conversation so far has led you to understand, more than likely, oh my gosh, that's me. So let's get into the meat of this. What are some things that we can do? Let's talk about in lifestyle, and then let's talk about after that within advocacy, within, on the computer, through phone calls to our elected representatives and such. BeeLyn, I'll give it to you.
Okay. To clarify with that question, are you asking more so of identifying those triggers and seeing how we can translated into different coping method or identifying how we're feeling and changing it and putting perspective.
Let's go ahead and bring the trigger into it. That's an excellent way to approach it. What are these triggers, some of these triggers, and then how do we best cope with them?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so I can briefly explain what triggers are, just briefly.
Yes, please.
So just like a brief explanation or definition, triggers are anything that a person can recall, like traumatic events that affects your emotional state, extreme overwhelmness or distress. A person can have difficult time staying in the present. So triggers can also be certain words, phrases, odors, sounds, anything that can put a person into memory of something traumatic that can happen. A person, for example, actually two people can have similar traumatic experiences, but they can actually have different types of ranges of factors. So, for example, me being over here in the States, and then a person probably living in Tigray, we may have similar experiences, but our trigger is going to be completely different. They could be different more mainly because, support more of a voice versus over there they may not have that, so that's probably why their triggers are probably more severe compared to mine. I think it's really important to acknowledge that as well. But I think it's also important to identify these triggers as well. Sometimes we're not even aware that, question yourself and being mindful of like, why am I acting out this way? Why am I having this rage? Why am I having this anger? Once you identify these types of triggers, see what you're able to do. For example, it's like, okay, I'm feeling very, very frustrated. I feel like I'm not able to do enough. Question yourself, what can I do at this moment? What am I able to do? What do I have of control? So with that being said, I'm sitting there, I'm thinking to myself, okay, these are how I'm feeling. These are my triggers. How am I able to proceed on? And so one thing I would say is, how are you able to advocate? We have the privilege sorry, my words, but we have the privilege of actually advocating. So let me see how I can advocate. What are ways that I can actually send a message out? I think it's also really important too, is like when you're on social media, just identify these trigger warnings. Try to avoid people and word in social media that can actually trigger your triggers. For example, seeing certain words, seeing images, seeing videos. Try to stay away from that.
Right? And writing everything that you just said as well, I'm noticing. Yeah. Writing those, writing those words, right? Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Journaling is also a good outlet as well. That's a really positive coping mechanism. Write down your things. Draw it out. Try to express it in a healthy way so you can actually steer away from actually verbalizing it out loud. I've seen people where they would write a letter and they would burn it away. That is something that would help them. Just expressing it in a more safe manner, but also just identifying what triggers you so you could stay away from it.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I just get very passionate about the need to understand also what we're intaking and also what we are putting out affects us equally, right? So to your point, and I want Selma to do this in Tigray, so I can't wait. To your point, what we, as we're on Twitter, because we know Twitter is the main platform that we're able to nudge at these officials, have direct, a lot of people are, or some people are on Instagram. It is the consensus that Instagram is more for communicating with each other, letting each other know where the rallies are, protests are, the new information, disseminating information that can be images and things like that, that can be used on Twitter, right? Twitter, the entities, UN, US, Department of State, all of these entities are there and they're actually taking in to account what we're writing. So that you have to be on every platform. I want us to really think about that. Don't feel pressured to be on every single platform. If you know your advocacy goes the furthest on Twitter, don't feel the need to be on Facebook and on Instagram. Maybe you still want to be on Facebook and Instagram. Maybe that's just a personal release for you then, you know? Maybe you like the artsy part of the Instagram. Maybe you can blow off some steam with your family and friends on Facebook and just speak to your emotions. But this need to, and I've experienced it myself. So every time I experience something, I know I'm not the only one. So I'm just trying to jot notes, right? And also, when you said if you're seeing these images, the words, a lot of us, the word Ethiopia is a trigger right now. You know, the flag is a trigger right now, where once we were so proud to put that out there. So as you're tweeting, try not to trigger yourself. You don't have to put, his name. You don't have to put, you could put his title. You can put, Tigray instead. You can say Africa. You could talk about the Horn. There's so many options, right? So I really want us to be mindful of things like that. Before we continue further, I do want Selma to have an opportunity to catch up.
Speaking of triggers, I think one example that could be relatable. Oh, sorry.
No, and actually, and we can do this as it flows. And I like that you can. What do you think? Because we're getting some notes. It looks like right now some of predominantly our viewers are saying we can do the Tigrinya terminology wise, and then kind of intersect it. Weave it in between. Because it's so much good stuff coming out. I want us to be mindful of the time, but we are, and I've said this several times, we are going to have an entirely show in Tigrinya because it's so important that our people that are getting this back home and also our people who are not speaking English get the entirety of this. So very important. Yeah, please go ahead, Sam.
I think it is because I was deadly. ለምሳሌ Dr. Tedros ናይ WHO ዳይሬክተር ማለት እዩ ሕጂ እሱ ብዝፀሓፎ ኣብቲ ናቱ ካመንት ኬርካ ተሪእካ ብዙሕ ሰብ ኣሎ ሕማቕ ነገር ዝፀሓፎ ማለት እዩ እስኻ ከምዚ ኢካ ጥራይ ትግራዋይ ስለ ዝኾነ ማለት እዩ ካብ ኢትዮጵያ ጀሚርካ ኢትዮጵያ ዝበሃሉ ሰባት ከበልዕ እዚ ካብኡ ጀሚርካ ዝተፈላለየ ዘይከውን ነገር ክፅሕፉ ይኽእሉ እዮም ንዓና ተጋሩ ድማ ክጎድአና ይክእል ከዚ እሱ ሲሉ ኮናው ኣትዩ ኳሊፋይ ስለ ዝኾነ ስለተምሃረ እዩ እናው ደረጃ ድማ ብትምህርቱ ኢምብርኣትዎ ሲሉ ይኩን እና ከምኡ ዓይነት ዘሕርቅ ነገር ክንርኢ ከለና ወይም ድማ ሕጂ ዝሓለፈ መዓልቲ ድዩ ገለ ደርፊ ርአ ናይ ኣብ ዩቱብ ኣደ ኢትዮጵያ ትብል ሕጂ ካብ ዝለቀቅ ሜቢ 3 ሰሞን ገይሩ ንዓይ እሱ ቪድዮ ክሪኦ ከለኩ በቃ ከኣምንስ ኣይከኣልኩን ማለተይስ ከመይ ገይራ እዚኣ ብዛዕባ ኢትዮጵያ ትደርፍ ዘላ ትግራይ ሙሉእ ተገልቢጣስ ክንደይ ስቃይ እንዳሃለወ ሰብ እንዳሞተ ከመይ ገይራ እናቴ ኢትዮጵያ ዝብል ነይሩ ትደርፍና ከምኡ ምስራኩ ንዓይ ዝገለለ ሞርጎድ እዩ it's a trigger because again ከም ዝበልናዮ ሕጂ በፂሑ ዘሎ ደረጃ ብጣዕሚ ከቢድ እዩ ኣንሕና ተጋሩ ብዝበለዎ ኣይኮነን international report ዘውፅዎ ነገር United Nations ትሪኦ report ከም ሰባት food insecure ምግቢ የብሎምን ናይ ትግራይ ህዝቢ መጀመርያ ክትሪኦ ተለካ ህዝቢ ብዙሕ ኣይኮነን ካብቲ ህዝቢ እቲ ሕጂ ምግቢ ንሕራይ ተዋሃቦምን ዝብል ቁፅሪ ብጣዕሚ ልዕል ዝበለ እና ዝኩሉ ስቃይ ኣብ ኢትዮጵያ ውሽጢ ትግራይ او ስለዘላ ሕጂ ዝኩሉ እንዳተሓለፈ ደርፊ ዝኾነ ሰብ ኮም ጌር ክደርፍ ተሎ ነተጋሩ ጉድኣት እዩ en ካልኣ ነገር ኣሎ ብዙሕ ኣብ ዩቱብ ኣቲካ ዝረዳእካ ሰብ ኣሎ ማለት ትግራይ ብኩሉ ጎንያ ተጎዲያ ዘላ ማለት ኢትዮጵያ ወጥስ ሰብ ኩሉ ናቱ ዝገብር ዘሎ ከም ዝደበልናዮ ናትና ችግር ተጋሩ ጥራይ ዘዛርቡ ዘሎ ኣብራድ ዘለና አዲስ አበባ እንኳን ከም ዝደበልናዮ ኩሉ ተዓጽ ስለ ዝኾነ ብዙሕ ግዜ ደሓኒና ኢሉ ዝሓልፍ ግን ኣብ ወፃኢ ንዘብር ዝበስ ኢትዮጵያ ከም ዝደበልናዮ ትግራይ ከም ዝኾይና ኣብ ትግራይ ወራ ኣሎ ኢሉ ወጽኡ ዝዛረብ ሰብ የለን ኩሉ ዝበፅሓ ተጋሩ እዩ እና كنفلت علينا ببي وجن ناتنا عقم نقبر بكلنا عقم سبب له ወይ ፕሮቴስት ከም ተፈላለየ ክትገብር ትክእል ግን ከም ዝሕርቅ ነገር ተርኢ ካ ሜቢ ኣብ ፌስቡክ ትፅሕፍ ዝኾነ ሰብ ዝፅሕፉ ሕማቅ ነገር ተኮይኑ ብተፈላለየ ሰብ ማለት እዩ ንትግራይ ፅቡቅ ዘይምነ የላ ትግራይ ኦልሬዲ ሕጂ ተጎዲያ እንዳሃለ ዝሕጎሱ ብዙሕ ኣሎ ከም this is not reality ማለት እዩ እና ከምኡ ዝጎድእ ነገር ተኮይኑ ናይ ስምዒት ከምዚ ነገር ትሪገር ዝገብር ተኮይኑ ክንገድፎ ኣለና ንምንታይ ዝገረደክ ሓርቀና እዩ أو maybe حدا كنت ساعات كنوا دينا نتسب كنا ردوا أرا كم بيكونن حزبنا يموت ذلوا مقبي باللومن قلت سب نعوتك أراني كنت فلح كنا غيرك هاي كأني so الناس بقدرن trigger نقدر نركبنا تنقدر ندقدر بركمتس ده حاشة مثلا
so حجي دمو we talked about now the relationship between those who are in Ethiopia outside of Tigray, mainly in the main city, and how their celebrations and music and festivities, they've even started these weekly campaigns highlighting, the best of Ethiopia sort of situation, and yes, how triggering, how most of us feel like it's such a slap in the face. How do you celebrate? How do you dance? Most of us are wondering how are we breathing at this point while such a massive amount of Ethiopia, because at the end of the day, Tigray is part of Ethiopia. So how is it, even if you have an issue with the government, that you can disassociate yourself from the people? That's the gut-wrenching thing. I have some people in the comments, or one person with the great point. Moving on from here on, what will our relationship with Eritrea and Eritreans be? I know for sure I've read comments throughout the social media this week, especially with the very gruesome accounts coming coming from people regarding Eritrean troops and their actions and the Ethiopian federal troops inaction of what's happening. It is my understanding now that for us, because we spoke the same language, we Tigrayans, Tagaros, believed that we were, so close with the Eritrean people regarding, culture and language. And now seeing this, hearing this, just a brief, I do want to answer our viewer briefly. What is our future look like with our Eritrean brothers and sisters? And does there need to be a distinction?
And other Ethiopians too.
Right. Well, I think that's right. It goes for both. But I think specifically for this, a lot of people are feeling that it's even more, because when you're within the city, I believe tensions have always been, you kind of know, right? But this is such horror of epic proportion, and it's new. So briefly, do we need to disassociate? Do we need to realize the difference between the army and the people? Because we know so many people are under the dictatorship, these atrocities, or what does it look like for us?
I think نعي مالتيس ببحل ديو بنا حيمانة ديو نسب كن نسأل ولا زمهر بحلنا تقرأي بحلنا ديو حيمانة الإسلام كتان نسب كن نسأل الزمهر يكون إننا نحن دما إذن الزهر بدلنا ويتسأل إننا تقالي كيف ونس تتقبر إننا عنا إننا الزهر بدلنا I think كم مثلني speaking of advocacy بحدا وجن إرتراوان كحجزنا زكلون دحر تدا اليوم again ما بتنتهله is at least حقهم نوصل نمتى يزي بلا له حنت في السبالة قال كتما تنبر إن والحواجة لموتنا قال سب نعاك بس حمدوا أو كم زكوي أنحنا إرتراوكم ما ينقبرن قال إذا مك حد بحد حكي حجوة الله so كل يفلت عندنا again because we want to talk about credibility which is حاجة حجوة الله بناي تجارب رأي يكون بinternational حجوة الله is full evidence صارت تفعل عليه news report was used in that
Oh, well, the days of trying to convince people that this is actually happening.
እና ትጉድኣት ድማ ብጣዕሚ ብዙሕ እዩ ንዓና ማለት ሕጂ ኮፍ ኢልና ክንገልፆ ትጉድኣት ዝገበረ ኣብ ትግራይ ብኩሉ ማለት ክትሓስቦ ተለካ ትጉድኣት ንምንታይ ንዓና ተጋሩ ብጣዕሚ ዝስምዐና ብሰብ ቤተሰብ ኣሎ ሙሽ ጥሜት ኣሎ ሕጂ ካብኡ ድማ ኢልካ ብናይ ሃይማኖት ተልካ ቸርች ዝኾኑ ዲስትሮይ ገይሮም እዮም መስጅድ ይኮን ዲስትሮይ ተገይሩ እዩ ካልእ ኢትዮጵያ ዝኩሉ እንዳተፈጠረ ምን ብዙሕ ኢትዮጵያ ዝብሎ ነገር የለን ኣንሕና ግን ተጋሩ ስለዝኮኑ ኣብናትና ስለዝኮነ ኩሉ ንሪኦ ኣለና ካብኡ ድማ ናብ ላዕሊ ተልካ ተሪእካዮ ኩሉ ላይቭሊሁድ ኣብ ትግራይ ላይቭሊሁድ ጠፊኡ ዘሎ ማለተይስ ኩሉ ተረሽኑ እዩ ዘሎ ፋክተሪታት ገለመለ ሕጂ ንባዕሉ ትዎር ኢንሻአላህ ይቋረፀልና ተቋረፀ ህዝቢ ናይ ትግራይ ናበይ ክከይድ እንታይ ክበልዕ እና እቲ ዳሜጅ ብጣዕሚ ብዙሕ እዩ ላይክ ንተጋሩ ትናትና ዳሜጅ እንትዘገበረ ደግሞ ፐርፔትሬተር ንብሎም ብእንግሊሽ ተፈለጠ እዩ እዚ እና ኣነ ብዝብሎ ኢቨን ብቃላት ንሰብ ክሕግዙ ይኽእል ኢለ ዝግምት እንድሕር ሰብ ክሕግዘና ተደልዩ ንተጋሩ ብቃል ንባዕሉ ኣም ሶሪ ከም ዝገርከ ሓሊፍኩም ኣለኩም ስቃይ እጆኩም ምሳኩለና እዚ ንባዕሉ ክሕግዝ ይኽእል እዩ ሙሽ ኣለው ተቃራኒ ክብሉ ይኽእሉ ከምዚ እኮ ይግበርና ኣንሕና ወይ ኤርትራን ድናይ ዝገብርዎም ኣለው እዚ ናትና ይኮነን ኤርትራ ውፅዋ ኤርትራ ብዝውሽጢ የለን ዝብልም ኣሎ ግን እቲ ነገር ብምንታይ ክንሪኦ ኣለና ብትሪያሊቲ ናይ ሂመን ክራይሲስ ኢና ክንሪኦ ዘለና እና ትግራይ ድማ ብጣዕሚ ማለተይስ ኣይ ዶንት ኖ especially ብሕጂ ፐብሊክ ሄልዝ ዘፅናዕኮ ማለት እዩ ብኤግዛምፕል ሓደ ዘንበብኮ እቲ ኩሉ እቶም ረፊጂ ዝሓልፍዎ ዘለዉ ሕጂ ረፊጂ ኮይኖም ንማንነትካ ዝዓብይ ነገር ኣለዎ ካብ ዓድካ ተፈንቅልካ ወፂካ ረፊጂ ምኮኑ ካልእ ዓዲ ብዙሕ እቲ ጉድኣትስ ክገልፆ ኣይክእልን ክብል እየ እና እንድሕር ሰብ ክሕግዝ ተደልዩ ብኤርትራ እንዳንዛረብ ዘለና ኤርትራውያን ዝኾኑ ብምንታይ ክሕግዙና ይኽእሉ እዮም በቲ ሓቂ ብምዝራብ ክሕግዙ ይኽእሉ እየ ዝግምት ሓቂ ምውፃእ ማለት ክትብል ትኽእል ኢካ ከምዚ ኮይኖም ፓርቲ ኣትዩ መፅኡ ናይ ኤርትራ ከምዚ
just a humanitarian sense
ኣይጎድእን ሓቂ ምውፃእ ምንም ኣይከውንን እዩ ኣሎ ንሕና ምሳኩምና ዘለና ኣሕዋትና ኢኩም ምባል ንዓና ክሕግዘና ይኽእል እዩ ክንዲ ካብ ሸፋትንካ እረ ንሕና ገበርናዮ ንሕና ዝገበርናዮ ነገር የለን ገበርናዮን እዚ ማለት ትምሕካት ሞር ከንዓና ይጎልና ኢለ ዝግምት already ብዙሕ ተጎዲና ኢና ግን
I think that's such an excellent point. I feel you said it all. It hurts from all sides to say that it's not happening. It's not when there are major media outlets now reporting it. As we've said earlier, this is not something that that anyone can contest anymore. And just to say that what's happening to the people is wrong does not make you political. So you don't have to. Yep. You do not have to be in politics to say starvation, weaponization of food is wrong. It does not make you a politician. So speak up because history will ask where you were. Just like we've studied in the books about the Holocaust and Rwanda, we keep bringing this up because we're trying to remind people to evoke some sort of emotion that you don't wait until it's in some sort of a book. Being mindful of time. I want to remind us that as we talk about all these triggers, that in itself is a trigger, right? That in itself is going to remind you or trigger things that have been undealt with. Being mindful also of our parents and of our aunts and uncles that are, will definitely be old enough to either have experienced firsthand or, mainly experienced firsthand. It's no secret. I myself am part of the group in '84 that walked, who stayed within the camps that are being reopened right now for our people. I remember, I want to say a good, 65 to 70% of what it was, although it's been so long. What has it been, 30 years or so? And there are a lot of people like me. And today I was in a group talking about just making introductions, and it just broke my heart because this Tigray woman that was not even 60 years old said that she'd been through four humanitarian crises, four of these just horrible wars, four of these, or two famine-led displacements, and we need to give grace. They're dealing with doing the best that they can, as we're doing the best that we can. Their trauma is going to seem different, as I believe Salma, as well as BeeLyn have mentioned. We all deal with it in different ways, and it shows up in different ways, and some of us shove it, but a lot of us, especially watching here right now, have had the privilege of being able to understand the importance of mental health and have gotten some form of training or exposure, even watching TV shows talking about this, right? It's something. It has you ask yourself, what am I dealing with, and things of that nature. So I just want us to remember to give grace to others as well as ourselves. And I don't want to leave without rehashing some of the coping mechanisms. Mm-hmm. How are we dealing with it? Today's program specifically for those people who, we're in the trenches of, first of all, we're all in the trenches. So mm-hmm. if you're not on a platform, don't feel like you're not doing anything, right? That's part of giving yourself grace. If you're taking time off in order to, to deal with your emotions, don't make yourself feel bad, because you need that in order to come back and do what is necessary. This has not ended within the first week. It's going to take a little time. So we need that self-care. It's necessary. It's part of the struggle. They say it's part of the fight. So mm-hmm. let's leave our folks for this discussion as we continue the series in wellness in time of crisis. Mm-hmm. How are we advising our people on Twitter, people during call banking? What is our advice? We each get, or ladies, you have 30 seconds. Do your pitch. Now, who'd like to go first?
I think I can.
Lovely. Go ahead, BeeLyn.
One thing I'll say, I think it's leave at least a couple minutes, a minute or 2 minutes a day. Take a moment, step away from responsibilities and put yourself first, and just think about, just check in with yourself. How do I feel? What is something I want to do for myself? Because sometimes it's really easy to actually get distracted and be busy with responsibilities to the point where we kind of neglect ourselves and our mental health and our well-being. And we're not even aware of the physical symptoms that are dealing with. For example, at the end of the day, you kind of question and wonder, why do I feel so tense? Why do I feel so sore? Why does my feet hurt? And those are physical symptoms of it. But just taking a moment of yourself, checking in, acknowledging what you have been doing, and just try to manage a positive mindset as possible. I think that's something that's beneficial and something that you can take away in the long run. But also just, your feelings, your emotions, your reactions are valid, and that's something that no one can take away from you.
Perfectly said.
Yeah, I think going off of that, أنا قبل سدلي again comes بيننا يعني كل سبت تفعلك كوني كأل أديت حدا نعي حجزني زكالة بتجيب بزح لغير السمع بتقريني because I think that بحالك حزو كذي نجار نكون تنكفوا ذلوا ترديكم ما ننتنا تبزح سمع بق حجي بتقريني أدري and that's okay. حدا زي maybe داسك سمعت ليلة تقريني أدري that's okay. مالتينس نت حجزنا ذكلك نقبر علينا در حجي خال عينس در نسمع بخال قوانقوا زكون بدنا ذكر تكونوا إشتنا كان مقبع عيدين. هذا نجار قبل زي اللي دما support system maybe سبعة تزاربهم تقولوا حجيانا أبزي مجمع كم زبكوا إذا نجار مسوسة مسخلات إثيوبيا إذا نجار تزاربوا نجار نيرو بن توم زبزحوا أيتردونه مور زكالة زك حدون يوم نيرو تايت ولا لكي تودي فوزلو تور رايكون أنا كوي بيت سبسر زالني إذا نجار فوزلو إننا حجين تايتا ما هيركاو نمتى ساعتي قاصل مالتي درجة حموش معلز أكل ساعات قاصلة كردهم أراكم يكونن إذن politics يكونن أنا politics زفلت أنا قريب لين جسنا حزب نقول بيت سبنا تعال يوم دمصوا ما يسمعون زلنا تعالوا يقبلوا عين فلتن ترى نيوز نرئي لنا كم سمويتهم أبز كم جبوتك ترشينهم بس ترى نسمع زلنا so نمتى آتي نعايز رد النسب دليل مدلاي جميرة مالتي سمس بيت سبي زي نقول نزار برضو حازم تحالو نحازن بحدا زبكي تحالو نبكي بكز زموت سبات አለው ንፈልጦም ቤተሰብም አለው ዝሞቱና ግሩፕ ሲስተም ምግባርና ትርድ አካሰብ ኮንካ ምዝግራብ is very important ቤተሰብም አብ ዘለውኒ እዚ ነገር በተፈጠረ ንዘራረበሉ ወከም ዝኮይኑ ዝሕዝን ተኮን ከም ዝርኮ ንሓዝን ጸለይኩም ንጸለይ ወይ ዱዓ ንገብረሉ እና እቲ ግሩፕ ሲስተም ምሳካ ዝከውን ንዓካ ዝርድእካ ክኸውን ኣለዎ እምበር ዝገደደ ዝኾነ ሰብ ዘይከውን እንዳምጽ ዝጎድእካ ተኮይኑ ዝገደደ ንርስእካ ዝጨናነቅ ማለት በዚ ሕጂ ግዜ ብኩሉ ስለተጎደእና ንባዕልና ክንሓስብ ኣለና because ማንነት ዝሓስበላ ስለዘየላ ማለት እዩ ካል ነገር ከዘረብ ዝበሊ ድማ ከም ዝበልናዮ advocacy ንኩሉ ሰብ ተፈላለየ ሕጂ ንዓይ ብዙሕ ግዜ ፕሮቴስት ይከብደኒዩ ማለት ስራሕ ኣሎ ገለሎ ፕሮቴስት አይገብርን ግን ብካልእ ነገር ክገብሮ ዝክእል ብዓቅመይ ይገብር ኣሎ ሜቢ ብሰሙ ንዛረበሉ እንታሎ ክታይ ከመክን ሓግዝ ንክእል ብዘረባ ጥራይ ክትሕግዝ ትክእል ኢካ ان ካልእ ድማ ከም ዝበልኩ ዓንጠወይ እዚ ነገር ዝፍጠር ዘሎ ኣብ ትግራይ ካልእ ሰብ ብዙሕ አይውጾም ዘሎ ንሕና ጥራይና እንደህራ እንተና አይተሳተፍናን እንደህራ እንተና አይውጸናዮን መን ክዛረበልና ኢትዮጵያ ከም ዝኾነ ሰብ ኩሉ ኢትዮጵያ ከም ዘይተፈጠረ እዮም ኮይኖምና ዘለው ንዓና እዚ ንባዕሉ ድንጋጸ እዩ ማለትይስ ክንዲ ዝኣክል ወር ተፈጢሩ ንሕና ተጋሩ ከምቲ ሰብ መኳንና ኩልና ተዓዲ ዝግልበጥ ይመስልኒ ነይሩ ኣነ ማለትይስ ወር ስለተፈጠረ ማለት ሰብ ኩሉ ሰብ ወፅዩ ንምንታይ ዝተፈጠሩ መስልኒ ነይሩ ግን ከምኡ ይኮነን so ከም ስለዝኮነ ክንፈልጥ ኣለና ብዓቅምና ንኩሉ ሰብ ተፈላለየ እዩ بعقمنا زين نستاتفن نتوم بيسبنا حزبنا تجري زنبر دمت زي بلوم نعرف دمت نكون نمثل تصفي
Perfect. Advocacy looks very different to everyone. That's a very good point, a very important point. Support systems, especially with COVID, it looks different. So whatever you're doing, whatever we're doing, please go to that. And if you haven't made that, if there isn't a Zoom call happening within family members, your sister, your brother, extended family can be now, like your nuclear family, friends who are family. Reach out to us. We're forming social media so that we're able to better serve you by getting your questions. Also, I personally go through the questions within the comments. Please feel free. If somebody needs resources out there, we will pull it together and show up for you. You are not alone. For our family and friends who are watching this abroad, who are within Ethiopia, that are outside of Tigray and receiving this communication, we are with you. We're screaming for you. Our souls are very, our body and mind is with you. Please be strong and do what you need to do to survive. Those of us within the diaspora, don't beat yourself up, please. Do what you can. And if you're not tweeting, tell people about it. I was buying some injera the other day at my local Tagaru store. And, I just said, he just seemed so beaten up. Like, some of us show it, some of us don't. And he just said, I'm standing at the store all day. I just wish there was something I could do. And it dawned on me that the news of the Twitter campaign never reached him. And this is, he's on social media. I saw that his phone was out and he was on YouTube. We're all just trolling the interwebs for information. When I told him about it, he cried and he said, people come and post things all day for themselves, apartments and things like that. He said, no one told me this. He cried. And I had to cry with him because I got it. Because, we feel like there's nothing we could do, but there is something. So if you're not tweeting, don't beat yourself up over it. Don't stress yourself. But help the effort by telling people about it. Stand with Tigray has tutorials in Tigray on how we have, you guys know what's up. So, and now Amna is also available. Stand with Tigray and Amna are working side by side. So thankful for that. We have our community activists who are at the forefront, just putting it all out there, using all of their know-how and really leading the way. Follow, on Twitter and see how that, um, trend, so to speak. We have campaigns going on. The major hashtags, just to remind you, are hashtag Tigray genocide. That's make sure you're spelling it right. Part of the campaign of the other people, the people that are not for us, is to misspell the hashtag so that when we're busy and tweeting, we're accidentally pressing on that. I just want to provide this information while I have this platform because today's program was specifically dedicated to people who've reached out, speaking on, advocacy and how do you, keep your sanity, so to speak. I really want to. I noticed we have a couple of people from London on our chats. Thank you so much for joining us. Please forward this, even if the people aren't watching, for them to listen to the program would be wonderful. We will continue this again. There will be upcoming completely in Tigrinya parts of this series. I really want to send a heartfelt just prayers and that our thoughts are with the family of the young man who took his own life in Europe. It destroyed us. It destroyed us because we know the pain and we know it's not unheard of. We need to be able to cope and help each other cope better. And to the families, obviously, what can I say? As I mentioned, then we're with you and we're thinking of him. And what a sensitive, just loving human being that you raised, and that would feel it so much. That it's just it's heartbreaking. And there is a GoFundMe to raise money for this young man. Please make sure with any fundraisers that are happening in the name of our people that it is authentic GoFundMe. There have been speculations about certain GoFundMes. Guys, let's remember to please be, to give grace. Let's investigate, let's ask around, but the off chance or the likelihood that it is authentic, let's be kind and let's be resourceful in figuring out if it's real or not, and then do our legwork to let the GoFundMe or whatever it is to know that this is not a real GoFundMe. Again, the major hashtags for people on Twitter are hashtag Tigray genocide, Tigray with an AY, not that way that we usually would spell it, and also hashtag stop war on Tigray. Currently, we're also doing the hashtag UNSC Act Now. And so again, please, we're talking about Omna and Stand with Tigray. A lot of people are making the mistake, they look for I Stand with Tigray, but it's just standwithtigray.com. Thank you so much. Please stay tuned. Look out for advertisements for our next focus within this series of wellness in time of crisis. I really want to thank our guests for honoring us with their time and their expertise. You will be hearing from them more is to come. And I want to thank you for honoring yourself and spending this time just thinking about questioning and getting answers on what well-being during this time looks like. If we are taking care of ourselves, then we'll be ready to take care of our immediate family members and those that will inevitably be coming home when the lines are open, that we'll be able to speak with, and we are going to become their psychologists, their therapists. So we might as well get ready and equip ourselves with this information. Thank you. May God continue to bless you and give you strength to do what we need to do. And don't forget, Tigray will prevail. Remember that. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye.